Hello, everybody. Welcome. And you are here for your weekly dose of Lord of the Rings, J.R.R. Tolkien, and all kinds of great mischief. There is an Amazon television series on the horizon about which we have reported, and all kinds of news and updates. Welcome, everybody. It's good to see you. My name is Clifford Broadway, also known as QuickBeam online. And my gosh, I've got my favorite good things here with me just from last week when I had been reading selections from the Silmarillion. This is the one with the extraordinary Ted Naismith illustrations and color pieces that are in here. And I've also got quite near at hand my copy of The Lord of the Rings itself. Okay, because we know for sure when we're talking about what kind of material they have licensed from this Amazon Studios definitely has a legal deal with the Tolkien Estate to get into the back pages of The Lord of the Rings. It is questionable, but so far we've been told no, they don't have any licensing from the Silmarillion, but that might change any day, as we predict, maybe. And then there's this extraordinary, my next best reference book, The Atlas of Middle-earth, created by the late and great cartologist Karen Wynne Fonstad, who also did atlases of Pern from the Dragon Riders of Pern series and other fantasy realms and legendariums. So, most intriguing to me, Voyages of the Númenóreans. Okay, there's like this 2-page spread right in here, page 44, page 45. You see this here? Welcome, everybody. If you want to talk about J.R.R. Tolkien and The Lord of the Rings and what's in between the lines between the Silmarillion and The Lord of the Rings, this is the connective tissue. This is the connective tissue. The Voyages of the Númenóreans. And here, there on the map, shows the various Númenórean voyages to different places around. Now, you see how far south Númenor is, how far, 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 far south Númenor is from the main continent. And look at this global close-up, a close-up of the globe of Arda, where the Númenóreans are going far, far around the continent, beyond the equator. Of course, this whole concept is that the Earth is still, Arda is still flat. At this point in time in the Legendarium, the Númenóreans traveled very far and very wide to experience many different races and different peoples and different ethnicities, and different concepts in the story include them influencing and changing things, as you know, as one is wont to do when you arrive in your massive Atlantean ships. So all this stuff is going on, and I've got to tell you, excuse me while I clear my throat. The whole stuff with the Númenóreans going on in the Second Age is a dynamite hot box of possibilities. That's what's so exciting about it. This is what the audience most likely will be most intrigued by. Now, it is also maybe a misnomer to have a Second Age Middle-earth show, with the title of the show being The Lord of the Rings. So maybe we can also speculate that The Lord of the Rings might refer to Sauron himself, as it does in the book, in the literary sense, but in the sense of the TV show, if they keep focus on Sauron as a character and all of his exploits, that will cover a lot of the Númenórean stuff. It will cover Sauron's war against the elves in the Second Age. It will cover the introduction and the death of major characters. Major characters will arrive and will expire, all within this time frame of Sauron as a narrative thread. So maybe keeping the Lord of the Rings of the title is fine. But let me just say that all that Second Age stuff about the Númenóreans is very, very exciting. And that includes a lot of stuff that is cross-pollinated with Sauron, that there's a whole lot of stuff of Númenórean legend that is not directly connected with Sauron, but the influence and the connection probably could be the biggest plot turn of the end of the second season, going into a very exciting third season when suddenly there's an overlap of the Venn diagram between Numenor and Sauron. I can just imagine that these people in the writer's room at Amazon Studios are having a grand old time. And so here we are with all the good books. We've got the Atlas of Middle-earth and the Lord of the Rings and the Silmarillion, with the Akalabeth in the later chapters, and of course of the Rings of Power and the Third Age in the final chapter. And we have the appendices, the juicy good appendices, and we'll all be taking a look at this stuff while we invite all of you, the entire audience, to join us. We're going to put the link up in a minute or two, and when that link is there, people who want to come in and Skype in with us or Zoom in with us in this live stream can bring in their ideas and their thoughts about what the story world is going to look like and what kind of a story-centric, will it be artifact-centric, focusing on the rings? Will it be Sauron-centric? We can talk about, will it be Numenorian-centric? Or what parts of those seasons might shift? What if they take an anthology approach to this? Really, what if they take an anthology approach and this series starts to look like Black Mirror, where there's a bunch of very different, encapsulated different stories in Middle-earth, and then every now and then they start to interlace some of the larger scale characters who become important to the backdrop. I mean, so much in the realm of possibility, and we're going to get to talk about this. It's very exciting. Welcome again. Here I am in my nice summer shirt. It needs to be ironed out maybe, but then again, it's that kind of, cotton that never really wrinkles, it's always perpetually wrinkly, so what do I do with it? Welcome to our virtual broadcast of Torn Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. This is the OneRing.net, forged by and for the fans of J.R.R. Tolkien. I'm your humble host. Justin is behind the scenes. He's going to put that link up, and I'm sure that he will be cross-referencing some things and then bringing some guests who want to come in and chat with me, and we'll talk about what kind of things. I also have, okay, it looks like I have a friend who wants to run Adobe Flash Player. How about watch us on YouTube instead? In fact, I'm going to open the YouTube chat, and I'm going to be chatting with the people live on all these platforms. We're going to bring in people from our different platforms, Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and YouTube Live, and we're going to try to bring you in to the chat. And I will be interacting with you live as well. We have a hotline. Dare I mention it? Yes. There's a phone number for you folks to join the show. The Torn Hotline is, let me remember. If I remember it, I have it committed to memory. It would be 530-64-FRODO. That's right, area code 530-64-Frodo. 530-64-FRODO. I think I got it right. Hello, everyone. Hi, guys. I can see everyone in the chat. Hey, everyone. Okay, so, so let's talk about this. The Second Age covers thousands of years. Thousands and thousands and thousands of years in the Second Age. And the introduction of what Numenor is and why Numenor is important has its roots in the First Age. And in the First Age, they don't have the rights to that story. It's all in the Silmarillion. Tolkien's notations in the appendix are very minimal about the Second Age itself. So, you see what I'm saying? It would be great to see who the Rings of Power go to. Yes, Facebook user says the 9 could be lands Numenor goes to. Yes, absolutely. That's absolutely true. By the time we get to Celebrimbor and the Rings of Power being forged, you would have had a lot of other backstory about Gil-galad. And Gil-galad is the king of the Noldor, and young Elrond is his herald. And how do we establish relationships with Gil-galad and Elrond and even Círdan, the shipwright. And what's important about the establishment of the Grey Havens, especially Lindon, the establishment of the elven kingdom of Lindon in the Blue Mountain regions, is all that backstory that they could either flash back to, or they could start off with it right up front in season one, because eventually we get to the other areas where the elves are also settling in, and that includes Eregion, or Holland, where, that's the Holland Gate of Moria facing to the west, and that was the region where, the dwarves and the elves were together at that period of unexpected brotherhood and synergistic relationship. It was such a beautiful community bonding and brotherhood of trust between the elves and the dwarves at that time. All that stuff is pre stuff before we get to the part where rings are distributed to certain people, which I definitely want to see too. But all this stuff it's just such a wildly big canvas. What I want to ask the live audience with us now, and ask you guys right now, what do you think is the most likely starting point, allowing for all kinds of flashbacks to happen? Yes. Allowing them to use huge chunks of, Gandalf and Elrond are standing on a balcony in Rivendell. You know how the scene is written. You know the script, okay? Scene, exterior, Rivendell balcony. Gandalf and Elrond are talking. Gandalf is muttering to himself in the background. Elrond strides forward and complains about how men are morally weak, with a slightly racial tone in his voice. We know this. This is where Philippa Boyens and Fran Walsh and Peter Jackson gave us a moment for a giant flashback when Hugo Weaving growls. He positively is growling at the camera at that point, and he says, "Men are weak." And we have that in flashback to what Isildur did. And Isildur was a great Númenórean prince. He was not just some lowlife who had never experienced power or fate of great portents, of great things, or tragic associations of politics, conscience, and morality. Isildur and his father had already been at those crossroads before of great power and morality and choice. Isildur and his father had been at those places before. Isildur was a great Númenórean prince who helped establish Gondor with his brother. And then here he is, choosing not to destroy the Ring of Power, and we get this big flashback. So we get these moments in time in a script where the story is in the present. You're right there in the late Second Age. The elves are talking, and they're in a conversation, exterior, elven balcony. Somebody reminisces to someone else, and then bam, they get to do this flashback to 6,000 years or more, however far back they need to go, even back to the First Age. If they get any licensing on the side, if these characters or situations can be referenced on the side, if they actually did Amazon Studios in their infinite wisdom, if they paid and got an extra deal on the side for other chapters and chunks out of the Silmarillion, then you'd get those flashbacks and the characters would live in the moment of great glorified past mistakes in judgment, in morality, which are always brought around these darker themes that Tolkien has, especially in the Second Age. And then, boom, we come back to the present moment, and we're right there where, Sauron and Anatar, as, a single character, are in the moment tricking Celebrimbor into making rings. So, yeah, they have a lot of leeway to go right forward with a late Second Stage story, where they're talking about all the later events of that period, right around the time where the elves are making magic rings. But they could do powerful flashbacks to the past, as Peter Jackson did. So, yes, coming in and text the hotline anytime. Hey, Margaret, how you doing? Hey, Edwin, nice to see you guys in the YouTube chat. The Noldor leaving Lindon to forge a new future in the east. Departure of Galadriel and Celeborn. Yes, Galadriel and Celeborn together, along with Celebrimbor. Imagine how much stuff they can give us. I'm glad you mentioned that. Thank you. How much stuff they can give us about the early stages or the middle stages of the relationship between Celeborn and Galadriel. Sounds really cool to me. I love it. I love the ideas, and I think it could be pretty wild. Um, there are also opportunities, which we've never talked about in full before, but Palantir could also be used. Other relics besides the magic rings could be used to powerful narrative effect, and they could be exploration lines, and Palantir themselves especially. Oh, yes, maybe a chance later to see Celebrian, Eladan, and Elrohir. Yes, Anka, Moon, I'm glad you said that, because Elrond will probably be a very powerful and important through line of the entire series. Having Galadriel and Elrond be through lines is important, so we can see the establishment of Imladris, we can see the establishment of Rivendell, and later on, his wife and his sons. Wonder if we will see the Nine Kings become the Ring Wraiths? Hello, Pipsquay. Hi. I would venture that no, we probably won't, because that happens in the Third Age. The stuff that happens with those rings corrupting men into ring wraiths, that happened in the early Third Age, and the Second Age ended with the destruction of Numenor, and I think they're going to focus a lot on that. That stuff that includes Lindon, the Elven kingdoms, and the Elven establishments in Eregion, the relationships with the dwarves, a time of robust commerce and exchange and economy and energy with Moria, when Moria was brightly lit and a warm and welcoming place to all elves and dwarves alike. And they've got lots of stuff to cover with the war of Sauron against the elves. And elven establishments in Eregion. That sounded like that volume was on very loud. Hello, Ellen. That sounded like Ellen was coming in. Let me tell you guys something. If they have a wildly successful TV series that does all this stuff with the forging of the rings and Numenor and Sauron's involvement with the downfall of Numenor, if they get to cover all that ground, then later on, maybe they will go forward and get into the things that happen in the Third Age, the establishment of Rohan, the disbursement of the Nine Rings, and how the Nine Rings corrupted them into wraiths. Yeah. Now, imagine, there you go, Tammy, I appreciate that. The history of the Seeing Stones, as I have thought many times, might be a narrative tool of great invention. We might have an untapped gold mine of how to use the Palantir to explore different people's lives and different periods of history across a very wide canvas. Yes, Margaret, absolutely. Fascinating. It would be so fascinating and fulfilling to see really strong bonds of brotherhood and kinship and success and good times between the elves and the dwarves. It really would be. Because it would make the Hobbit films more resonant in a way that they distrust each other so much, and it would make Legolas and Gimli's relationship much stronger and fulfilling to see really strong bonds of brotherhood and kinship and success and good times between the elves and the dwarves. I just saw Ellen there, but I heard myself in the broadcast. That was really funny. Hi. Let me see. Yeah, they've got what, 5 years? They have 5 seasons to go. And imagine using the Palantir in such a way to investigate Numenor, and after the fall of Numenor, in later seasons, they could use the Palantir to explore so many other kingdoms. The kingdoms established in the north and in the south, in Gondor and Arnor. And that could be much later season stuff. It could be great. Oh yeah, Cecilia, we're going to see a lot of Sauron. We're going to see a lot of Sauron. All right, look at it this way. If they do not completely focus on Sauron as a character or as the major through line, as long as exploring Elrond and Galadriel and all the other characters as well, but they have no business keeping this title. They should not even use that title. They have no business using that title on their TV show. If they're going to squarely focus on other people and Sauron is only on the side here and there. In that case, we can probably open it up for debate as to what should we call the show instead. Maybe an alternate title, Legends of Middle-earth, or something stupid. I don't know. What do you guys think? Tammy says, where the pensive was used in Harry Potter to view past memories, Lord of the Rings can use Palantir Network to take us into the present, and probably how many episodes in a season? Margaret is asking, how many episodes in a good season? Assuming 10. Yeah, assuming 10. I wonder if they have 8 episodes for an early season because of COVID-19 and because of the difficulties in production, having shut down for so long. It might be possible that it would be the first season is 8 episodes and they go up to 10 on future seasons 2 and 3. Well, we don't know. Oscar says, do you think they'll establish Sauron's origins as an entity and explain his part in the First Age? Much in the way that they would use powerful flashbacks, the way that Peter Jackson did. Yes. Sauron was not given any background in Peter Jackson's 6 movies. There was no background at all, the way it's discussed in the Silmarillion. But remember when we talked last week? Ladies and gentlemen, do you remember? Remember when we did a reading from this last week? And we realized that every actress, every actor in Amazon's production is using this and only this as visual messaging, right? Visual communication to all of us. To all of us conspiracy theorists about what are they doing on the Lord of the Rings series. Well, this is your messaging. Okay? So I would expect them to do strong visionary flashbacks to the First Age. And Oscar says, I sincerely don't think it will be the official name. For now, it's just a reference. I would agree with you on that. It might be just a blank reference term until they think of something else. But literally, I'm telling you now, we can expect it to be called, Tales of Middle-earth, or like Amazing Stories of Middle-earth, or whatever they call it. Or even something much more academic. What if they call it The Legendarium of J.R.R. Tolkien? I don't know. I have no idea. But if they do, if that is just a placeholder, great. If it's just a placeholder, fine. But if they dare to keep this name as the full title of their series, if they dare to do that, then that's going to be a clue to us as an audience that they're going to be focusing on Sauron. Okay? Otherwise, they have no business doing it. Cecilia says, my fear is that they represent Sauron like in The Lord of the Rings as an incorporeal entity. Not this time. Not this time. This time, I guarantee you, they're casting they want the young actor or actress or whoever. They want someone to come in and be Sauron as like a Tom Hiddleston Loki. And this will be the most unique exploration for all of us as Tolkien fans, because we have never, ever seen this villain in human form or in elfin form, as appearing as an elven lord, corporeal, tangible, just like sitting across the room, holding a glass of wine and saying, "What do I do? Well, I drink and I know things. That's how tangible Sauron is going to be. Sauron will be across the table, drinking from his cup, and slyly making these little witty bon mots. And that's going to be a head trip for us. I mean, as multi-generational Tolkien fans, we've never experienced Sauron presented in such a way. So we've got to get our head around that. What if it's just Sauron walking around in his armor? A realist has suggested, what if it's just, no, Sauron will be in full communication and in full physical form, like sitting in the throne room, like Loki, trying to wheedle his little lies into people's ears. And some people will be smart and will say, no, we don't want to see you. I mean, Celebrimbor is the guy who says, okay, Anatar, come and teach me these gifts of how to make rings. But Gil-galad says no. He says, I didn't order that. He opens up the front door and sees that Anatar is a cheap carpet salesman, shuts the door and says, I didn't order that, and sends him on his way and would not see him. Treebark says, Sauron, a Middle-earth story. Yeah, a true crime story, right? Yeah, but seriously, Sauron is going to be shown as, the Avon lady that is unwanted coming to the door at Gil-galad's realm in Lindon and is sent, and he just goes off to go try to wheedle his way in with Celebrimbor instead. That's all going to be like a first season construct in my guesstimate. I'm just guessing, but that's my guess. Further to that, not only is it going to be weird for us to see Sauron, we're going to have to get used to him, having villains on the side that are also part of his cartel, who are also disguised. So that's going to be a weird thing too. I can just imagine. Oh, Oscar asks, do you think the ring will be forged within the first season? Well, what would be a better crazy cliffhanger of all cliffhangers, the end of the first season with Sauron suddenly in a scene we go to Orodruin and we're there at the fiery mountain in Mordor, and then quite suddenly there's, here you go, here's an evil ring of power. All right, seriously, it's a ring. Okay, so then we've been in Numenor, we've been in Lindon, we've been all around the Blue Mountains, we've been in the golden days of Moria, and we've been in Eregion, and then all of a sudden we cut to Mordor, and there we see Sauron doing this at the end of season 1. And he raises his hands up and cut to dun 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 dramatic music. What do you guys think? That would be a massive end of season 1. It would blow everyone's mind, and they'd be like, oh, it's the one. Is Sauron going to be an anti-hero? Wow, excellent question. That is an excellent question. I would let anybody else speculate that as much as me, okay? Because that's what is so successful about Tom Hiddleston as Loki. Isn't that why we love him so much? Because he's the bad guy who we love to hate, even though he's a bad guy. But he's kind of sometimes, Sauron does not have that wiggle room in his morality. He doesn't get to be likable because he's like sometimes doing good guy things with the heroes on the side. Sauron doesn't do that, but they do have a lot of ground to cover, don't they? John Ortiz says, I'm hoping that the cinematic style of the show will include more magic and fantasy elements that are dramatic. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that too. I wonder, to the previous comment of how are you gonna, I know I'm tying my shoes while I'm doing my show. You can tell I'm down here, reaching down here to tie my shoes. It's embarrassing. Sauron's being a real life character, a tangible character, he might get as far as he can in the season before the people let us in that is who he really is. Hello, Kostas. Hi, Kostas. Hello, everyone. I believe that this show must be faithful to the way Tolkien created this universe. I can't see the rest of your comment. I can just see the first sentence. They have to keep it within parameters that are true to the skeletal structure of this timeline. Okay, as noted Tolkien scholar Tom Shippey has said on a German podcast that got him fired off of the production of the show by Amazon. He told the fans on that podcast, I believe, that the fundamental structure of the history cannot change. Things have to stay true to Tolkien in that Moria and the elves have to have a good relationship. Lindon has to be established by Gil-galad. Elrond has to be the one who establishes Imladris at Rivendell, and the rings have to be made. And the war of Sauron on the elves, it has to happen. It goes on for years, but the war of the elves and Sauron has to happen. And Sauron pissing off the king of Numenor and making him come and arrive on the shores of Middle-earth, and him going to be held captive, Sauron going back to be captive to the king, Ar-Pharazôn. All that has to be there. The destruction of Numenor. It all has to be there. But they can do anything they want between the bricks, which is what we worry about sometimes. We need to see him in his beautiful form as Anatar. If not, I'm not seeing much of a point in learning more, says Oscar. Well, that's true. Yeah, you have to... We have to imagine him being like Loki. And yet the comparison might be an unfortunate burden for the writers and for the poor actor who has to play the part. Okay. Dmitriev says, I'm worried for the show. It can be the greatest thing ever created on TV since Game of Thrones, but it could also be an abomination. Well, Dmitriev Sijenko, my friend, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, but they spent $500 million on this. They're not going to screw it up that badly because they're already involved with the Tolkien Estate having veto power. They can come in and take their little pen and say, nope, nope, no. You can't do that. And then they stop it. They can't do the script, and they can't make the show that way. So because the family, the Tolkien family estate, in whatever regard it is, you have for it, or whatever state it's in right now, since the unfortunate death, the retirement, and the future, right after he retired, Christopher Tolkien died. And this feels good. I just shaved my head yesterday. The thing with Christopher Tolkien being gone from the estate, and the estate is now in the hands of grandchildren of Tolkien. We're going to see what they allow in terms of breadth and changes in the story adaptation that they're doing. But it can't fundamentally be screwed with. Hello there. Lance says, can't wait to see the show. Really hoping for the production design. Look, compliments the movies. Yeah, do you know what? We've been reporting for a long time that Amazon Studios paid a lot of money to get licensed armor, design work, architecture, character designs, and weta designs, and to repurpose existing designs that were already used in Peter Jackson's 6 films. So I find that very interesting. Gothmog is asking, how can they even approach Sauron's character as Anatar? It would be a complete invention by the writers. Well, yes and no. It will be a complete invention of the writers within the governance of the expensive license that they paid for. You see, the constant argument that they're just going to make up stuff which is instant garbage, and because it's going to be an abomination, that is an easy intellectual slippery slope that I would caution all of our fans to avoid, because I don't see the wisdom in a production company spending an outrageous amount of money, $500 million, and then another 500 million to make it over $1 billion and more and more and more. And at the risk of losing the deal, why would they mess with it that bad? They are not allowed to make something that is an abomination in the eyes of the Tolkien estate, because they will bring out their red line pen and say, no, no, you can't do that. So, Amazon has to A, satisfy the audience, and then B, they have to satisfy the license, the conditions of the license, so that they don't lose the license to continue and make more money and make more productions and other auxiliary shows and other auxiliary content. So, the whole thing is that they've got a lot at stake. So they're not going to just muck it up instantly. And the Tolkien estate has, to a certain degree, a level of control which is unprecedented in any other production of Tolkien that we've ever seen before. So, in terms of Peter Jackson's movies, his 6 movies were made in the past under a previous deal that allowed them to do a lot of changes and do whatever they wanted. Look at what happened. Faramir ended up dragging Frodo and Sam all the way to freaking Osgiliath and had no business doing that. Okay? And they cut out Glorfindel again. And they cut out the scouring of the Shire. And all the stuff that Peter Jackson did was all was stuff that the Tolkien estate couldn't say anything about, because it was under the terms of another deal with Saul Zent's company. This time, there is some weird automatic safeguard in this new deal with this stuff, because the Tolkien estate has some kind of involvement, which is really unprecedented. And further to that, we've seen so much success with the property, with the video games, and with the 6 films. They realize a good thing when they smell it, and they're gonna want a return on their investment. So I trust that they're gonna actually handle it in a decent way, but we'll wait and see, won't we? Edwin says, I agree, Oscar. I want to see Anatar explored like Lucifer, which I'm guessing Tolkien correlated him with. Yes. Lucifer, Loki, Anatar. All exactly the same within that scope of mythological construct. Yes, absolutely. And yes, informed by Professor Tolkien's Catholicism. Absolutely. Here in the YouTube chat, Titus has said, it's going to be interesting to see what Numenor will look like visually. I agree. All right, let's talk for a quick second about how Atlantis has been depicted, okay? All right, everything that we've got from recent 20th century movies and TV has been, Walt Disney's Atlantis, The Lost Empire, and Stargate, where we're going off, to this other great civilization. And, Atlantis is a thing in the Numenorian story that is such a clear mirror to the Greek story, but it is not overly Greek and does not have to stick within any of those parameters. So what they can do with Numenorians, I mean, look, they live for hundreds of years. Okay, that's why, Aragorn is 80 something, and Eowyn is completely shocked to find out, oh my God, you're actually from Numenor. You're one of them. Like, take out your old copy of The Two Towers, extended edition, and go straight to that little scene where Eowyn is making that horrible, disgusting soup for Aragorn, and she starts to realize the differences in race and the differences in racial destiny and moral direction and Numenorian bloodline, and the things that are so different from her and her life. Like, she looks at Aragorn for like almost half a second, like he's a different species of creature. And then she goes back to falling in love with him even harder when she finds out, oh my God, I could totally bag this guy. He's so, or maybe not. Maybe she starts to think maybe he's beyond my reach, but maybe not. I think Eowyn is, and that's what I kind of love about her, is that she's like emotionally assertive with Aragorn to that weird degree. I know it is a bizarre departure from the Lord of the Rings, and I know that some people don't like it, but I'll give Miranda Otto credit for doing what she does. But yeah, the Numenorians need to be depicted as like they have technology in tools, agriculture, as mariners. They have advancements in boats. They have things that no other, humans on Arda have. The Numenorians are wildly advanced with herbs, medicine, agriculture, maritime technology advancements. It's just amazing. And they bring all this stuff to different colonies, and they start to colonize and establish places in Middle Earth. Princess Toy Nerd said, I always imagined Sauron with red hair. Do you know what? Yeah, why not? Why wouldn't Anatar be like the most outrageous ginger? Who knows? I know. I mean, it would give Eric Cartman fits, endless fits. He would have a conniption, but yeah, okay, sure. Why not? Irrealist says, the fan art I've seen for him is almost always blonde. Yeah, I always see Anatar as blonde. Right. Yeah, I do that. I see that a lot too. In terms of, back to the YouTube chats. Cecilia, thank you for that clapback about what they did to Great Faramir. But, hey, it's Ben. Hey, there's Ben. How are you? There's my friend Ben. I'm going to say hi to him. You guys, he is the absent deity. Say hi to the absent deity there on the YouTube chat. That's one of my best friends. We play Dragon Dice. Yes, here you go. Dragon Dice. It's got wings and a tail and another tail. Oh, and there's a breath. There's the dragon breath coming out of his mouth. Yeah, see? Dragon breath. And so you roll the dragons, and they do lots of damage and destroy your dice armies. And hashtag nerd. Okay, hashtag nerd. Now, Oscar says, do you think the show will end with Isildur's death and the ring being lost? Okay, you mean at the end of season 5? Sure, yeah. Or maybe if it's very successful and they extend and they make it, how many seasons did you get out of Game of Thrones? 8. If it was that much of a cultural phenomenon and they extend further and further, then I would believe by the end of the 5th or 6th season, as far as they go with it, at the very, very end, probably one of the last things they should ever show is Isildur cutting the ring off of Sauron's finger and just cut to black. And then that's it. That would be amazing. Wouldn't that be amazing? Yeah, I do think that would be awesome. Now, all right, we're talking about what kind of possibilities that we're going to cover in the idea of artifacts and the Palantir being used straight from Numenor, as was correctly pointed out by the YouTube channel Men of the West, which is quite good. You notice that at the destruction of Numenor, a lot of important items ended up being transferred with the faithful over to Middle-earth, and that would be the tree, the seedlings of the white tree of Numenor, which would be planted in Gondor, and then the Palantir, and the Ring of Barahir, which you get to see a lot more of in the extended edition of the Two Towers, and then the Scepter of Enumenos. Okay, not only the Scepter of Enumenos from the throne of Numenor, but also an important sword named Narsil, a very important sword that will be carried by, the king, Elendil, and then will be carried very briefly by Isildur and will be broken. That sword, Narsil, will be reforged as Anduril. So there's like the scepter, the ring of Barahir, there's the sword, there's the Palantir, and there's the seedlings of the white tree. All of this stuff can be featured everywhere in the entire series as strong third age reference points, so that we know we're watching stuff in the Second Age and getting wink, wink future glimpses into, oh, that Palantir, that scepter, that ring. Who's wearing that ring? The important character, who should be wearing that ring. Because everyone's going to know it when we see it. And if it's true, if what we hear is true, that they did license existing Weta designs, then the design of the swords, the design of Narsil, will be the same. And yes, we will see more of the Easterlings, and we will see more of the Southrons, and this is where we get to talk about more diversity and more ethnicities being shown in a Tolkien adaptation than had ever been available, because the scope of the story with Númenóreans can go as far and wide as they want to take it. If they keep the story focused on Sauron, even Sauron, who explores many of the other areas to the east and to the south, he finds that men are weak, just like Elrond said, and men are easily corrupted. The Númenóreans were not easily corrupted, and that is one of the reasons why Sauron hated them and feared them so much, was because they could resist his efforts and his wiles. So, the character of elves in all of the planet of Arda are different, because some of the elves, the Teleri and the Avari, who stayed in Middle-earth and did not answer the summons, did not go like the Noldor, who went all the way to Valinor. Those elves are different spiritually and physically, in a sense, because they beheld the sight of the two trees. The remaining light of the two trees was captured by Feanor into the Silmarils. I mean, these elves were different from the ones who stayed behind. The men, the second-born children of Ilúvatar, the men who contacted the Noldor and were exposed to them, were very different from the ones who did not go to Beleriand and did not help out in the events of Beleriand, and they were different metaphysically. And so those men were more easily corrupted by the minions of Morgoth, which at the time included his chief lieutenant, Sauron. So the writers, if there is fidelity to Tolkien, and we constantly advocate for that on this program, you've heard us saying that for many years on this live stream, that fidelity to Tolkien is the most important thing. And if they do, if the producers and the writers on the Amazon series successfully keep the fidelity to Tolkien's metaphysical and thematic interests about why certain elves and men are different from other elves and men, and some are corrupted and some are not. Some fight the good fight, and some do not. And all this morality that is at play, there's an amazing hotbed of fertile ground, really, that they can cover with these characters. But if they don't pay attention to what that difference is, then, and they're going to have to go into some explanation of what is Valinor, what is the energy, the metaphysical difference for characters in this world who have been over to the West. And all of this stuff that they're doing right now in the Second Age is still while the planet is flat. It is flat. This is where flat earthers get to have their 2 seconds of fame, because the world is not made round. Check it. Check out the Atlas of Middle-earth. It's the best thing that you could ever read if you really want to know what's going on in this legendarium. It is at the end of this series, if they show the destruction of Númenor, that is when they can spend all their money on the most insane visual effects sequence ever, where they can show the bending of the earth, the bending of the planet. Arda will be remade from flat to round, and they can separate with some incredible visionary visual effects director, and if they hire the right people and they do it right, the cataclysm at the end of this TV series, it might be like some thing we've never, ever seen, ever, in any movie. It might be the biggest thing to see Valinor, to see Aman in the uttermost west taken off of the field and to disappear into a spiritual veil, and then to see the flat earth made round as Numenor is like Atlantis, as Numenor is caught up in the massive tumult of waves, earthquake, explosions of lava, and molten destruction from beneath the ocean floor as the entire continent is submerged and the earth is changed and the Arda is changed. Imagine what they can do. Just imagine it, folks. I want everybody out there, I want my entire audience to speculate on where they will begin season 1 and where they're going to end at season 5. Let us speculate how far and how much they can tell. And if they do it right, it will be astounding. It'll be astounding. It'll be insane. Insane. But there has to be a lot of stuff shown that they've never been able to show. We're talking the uttermost west. Aman, Tall Erisea, Valinor, Numenor, the changing of the earth, the changing of Arda. They have to do all this stuff, the making of the rings, the establishment of massive kingdoms and the migrations of peoples. I mean, come on, they've got so much of a canvas to cover. So we need to speculate, where does season 1 begin and where does season 5 end? Maybe if they get lucky, they'll extend, and they get their contract rewritten, and they extend that very, very costly license, and they get to go on and do season 6 or 7. And then at that point, we don't know when we will see the destruction of Numenor. But if it all works out, and if they do it proper, then no wonder they're spending $1 billion on it. They're spending over $1 billion to create a planet and then only to destroy it cataclysmically, according to J.R.R. Tolkien's legends. They cannot stray from that story. They have to write about Anatar and his day-to-day behaviors and what it's like when he lifts a fork and lifts a glass and these mundane things. Yes, they have to invent. They have to completely invent stuff out of thin air, but they also have to keep the show completely in line with the history that Tolkien wrote and that they paid for. They paid for it. So they might as well not toss it around and mess up their license. They might as well use it properly. I hope you guys understand what I'm trying to say here. I'm not advocating that they've got themselves into a perfect position where they can do everything right. What I am advocating is that they have every reason to try their damnedest to do it right the first time. I'm telling you that they have every obvious reason to do it right and to do it with fidelity to Tolkien. And if they don't, if they piss off the fans, and if they change a bunch of stuff that the Tolkien Estate lets them do, and if they change stuff that is not even recognizable as the Middle Earth that we recognize as Middle Earth, then they're not going to gain subscribers. They're going to get lambasted, and they'll get a lot of, to say the least, they will have a lot of very vocal fans giving a piece of their mind if they mess it up. So I'm just saying that this is the most expensive endeavor ever in the history of television as a medium. And they have the involvement of the estate to a degree that we do not yet understand. They have the involvement of all of these stories that refer to the Third Age, but they're stuck very, very, very much in the Second Age. They have made a commitment to this Second Age stuff, and I can see the wisdom. I can see the wisdom in them entering into the Second Age because it allows a wonderful focus on Sauron and Elrond and Galadriel. And I mean, no wizards. I'm sorry, there are no wizards. No wizards will show up. They can't do that. They can't have any hobbits. I'm sorry, we're going to miss the big four things. We're going to miss Gollum. There's no Gollum. There's no hobbits. There's no Rohan. I'm sorry, there's no Rohan. And most of all, there's no Istari. We don't get to meet 5 wizards. None of that stuff is in there. But they still have a lot of other things that are strongly connected to us, like the relationships between the elves and the dwarves in Moria, and what life was like when times were good and bountiful, and Elrond and her romance with Celeborn. And what was it like for one elven king to say, no, you, Anatar, get the hell off of my front porch, and the other elven lord, Celebrimbor, says, hey, buddy, come on in and teach me this craft of making rings. It sounds wicked cool. I want to do this. You know what kind of internal friction we're going to get to explore between great elven lords and kingdoms and peoples and the Numenorians? Oh my gosh, the best thing about it, even though we don't get any hobbits or wizards, the best thing about it really is that we get Numenor. And that is like, oh boy, that is like the Holy Grail, like Atlantis mega story that personally I've been very, very attracted to for much of my life. And I think it's a pretty interesting choice for them to do this as storytellers. But it has to include, thematic, metaphysical, and a very emotional awareness and fidelity to Tolkien for them to pull it off. So, I'm advocating the position that I'm just as nervous as you, really. I mean, I have spent my entire life, in a very real sense, since I was a very small boy, I've spent my entire life with Professor Tolkien in every cell of my body, in every fiber of my being. And I understand and relate to the world around me because of the way that I understand and relate to Tolkien's legends. And I'm telling you, all of you, ladies and gentlemen, very personally, I am hopeful. I'm hopeful, but I'm also nervous, just like you guys are. Just like you all are. But I'm encouraged, to some degree, that they're trying to take care of a very important license, and that they've got the Tolkien Estate involved. And I'm encouraged that they've chosen a larger framework of storytelling, which is ripe for the picking, if you see what I mean. Margaret in the chat says, we'll finally be able to see elves that are truly happy and not in the fall of their lives. Yes, yes, yes. You will be able to see powerful elven lords and ladies at the supposed apex of their power, not at the very, very, very end of the Third Age, when their light is so diminished within the world. Yes, that's going to be amazing to see that. I'm really glad you mentioned that, Margaret. I really am. Realist says in the YouTube chat, who is the Tolkien Estate? Do they really care about the lore like us nerds? Well, okay. Before I would ever give myself over to unchecked cynicism, I will acknowledge the question. Absolutely, I get it. I get that question. But I fear that question would not be one I would automatically gravitate towards, because it is, it's difficult to be like, we cannot unilaterally understand their state of mind. But the Tolkien Estate are the living granddaughters and grandsons of J.R.R. Tolkien, one of whom is published author Simon Tolkien et al. And other family members, and even Priscilla Tolkien, who is the only one of J.R.R. Tolkien's family, of his 4 kids, who still survives. And the Tolkien Estate is making decisions to protect and further Tolkien's literary legacy. And so their concern is to make sure that whatever the writers do on this series, they don't muck about with it so much that it violates the established world building, which so many of you I have seen praising in the chat, and appropriately so. The world building here and the legacy here, you can't just muck with it. So that's who they are. That's what we understand about their interest. Their interest is also to keep the deals going so that they can monetize it, the rights to the work. But they want to monetize the rights to the work in a way that they have some judicious final veto. They can veto something that is too far afield. So whether or not they care about the, going into the weeds of the granular details that we love to get into here with our fandom, I don't know if they are as granularly nerd-like as we are. But what I do know is that they can't let it fall apart, because if they let the apparatus fall apart, there will be nothing left for them or their children. So they need to keep a close eye on things. And that is also where we come in. And that is where we come in. And this is where we have been all this time. We are here. And I want to thank all of you. I really, from the bottom of my heart.
Before you
thank
go,
you.
It's time for Green Dragon Gossip.
I know we're going to do some Green Dragon Gossip. Hello, Justin. Thank you for being with us.
You won't believe what I just heard.
Wait a minute. Ladies and gentlemen, now let me just say, this is a great show. But before we go, we have a segment where we take a drink and go sit in the pub in the back booth of the Green Dragon. We talk a little bit about what's going on around the Shire in terms of gossip. What have you been hearing, Mr. Justin? What are you hearing?
Well, the latest gossip, and again, this could be true, this could be false, but the latest Green Dragon gossip is, now that New Zealand is fully open, Lord of the Rings is, as of this week, officially back in production. They are rolling cameras. They've got actors on set. Sets are being built. Explosions are being pummeled into the air. And if you live and work
that's awesome.
near Auckland, and if you're near Auckland and you hear anything, if you see anything, if you smell anything,
take video,
downwind,
take pictures and send it to us. Send it to us. We have to. All right, you can send it to the One Ring Net on Twitter on their DMs. Or you can send it to me, QuickBeam2000 on my Twitter on my DMs.
We won't
slide in
it. We keep you anonymous. We're really good at that. 20 years of anonymity.
20 years of keeping secrets.
Yeah, there are still secrets from Lord of the Rings that we haven't spoiled.
Yep, me
Don't
too.
You think? So right now, Lord of the Rings is in production. They are full steam ahead. They've got scripts for the first season completed. They are polishing.
So they're back at it. They're totally back at it.
They are totally back at it right now. This is the time where we need to see spy reports. We need to see pictures of a wizard on a spiked wheel in a lake bed. Remember when we thought that was Gandalf and not Saruman? So this is the time. Take out your 4K cameras with your 10 times zoom, and I want you guys in New Zealand to travel around the area and just send us a little note, spymaster@theonering.net, or you can slide into our DMs on Instagram and Twitter and just say, hey, I saw this picture about crew parking. I wonder if that's anything. I'm telling you, it is anything. Lord of the Rings is the only TV show in the world in production right now. The only TV show in production right now on a global scale is Lord of the Rings. So I'm putting the call out. And that's the gossip. Cliff, back to you.
That's awesome. Wow. Mind blown. Thank you for that. You know, I never know what I'm going to end up hearing when I go take a drink in that back booth in the Green Dragon. Sometimes it's a weary traveler who has been out there in the wilds and has quite a story to tell of wargs or wandering orc packs. And sometimes it's just Justin, my producer, hiding in the background. And he's getting some wild updates. Looks like they're back in production right now on the Amazon show. Hello, Ellen. Hello, nice to see you, Ellen Monocrusos. Lovely person, lovely friend. How are you? Yes, New Zealand did a fantastic job of eradicating COVID-19. So they're working on Avatar soon. They're actually in production right now. Did you guys hear that? So they are actively in production in New Zealand right now. How about that? Well, I just sent that to the folks on the YouTube chat. This is great stuff. Pretty good stuff. Thank you, everybody. Again, we have overstayed our 1 hour show. It's wonderful to have you with us. Next week, we will have more mischief and more mayhem and even more surprising news updates. Follow me as QuickBeam2000 on Instagram or Twitter. And you can follow us on the One Ring Net on all platforms. We're going to come back to you next week. We'll be back on Tuesday at 5 o'clock p.m., which is, of course, 8 Eastern Time. And for those wonderful people in the United Kingdom, they're up at 1 a.m. Thanks for staying up to visit with us. And for all of our New Zealanders, you're in the future. Lovely to have you guys on the show. My name is Clifford Broadway. And again, I ask everyone to stay safe and sane. And until next time, good night and good luck. Buenos noches y buena suerte.